Hi there. Welcome back to Patterns and Podcasts for Knitters. My name is Renee. I live in Northern Illinois with my husband and with my sheepadoodle dog, Baloo. Our kids are grown and out of the house and on their way. Yay. Um, but I am a crazy knitter, crocheter, love yarn, love making things. It's too hot today to wear anything knitted. Believe it or not, this is the middle of October, actually third week in October, and it is hot in Northern Illinois. Beautiful in the 70s. Took the dog for a walk this morning. Awesome. So anyway, today I'm only showing 4 podcasts, and 3 have knitted objects. One is an inspirational on fashion trends for 2022. Even if you're watching this 2 years from now, trends take a while to move on. So just, not that I'm a fashion expert, but I do know that. Again, the whole purpose here is to help you go directly to an episode that interests you, where the podcaster is showing you a finished object. It's a quality podcast with a super talented knitter, in my opinion, and hopefully it's helpful to you. But we did go to Rhinebeck last week, and I did buy a little bit of yarn at Rhinebeck, but I also stopped at Cold Springs, New York, which is a cute little town on the Hudson River. The Endless Skein is a lovely little yarn shop, and I don't know the owner's name, but she's so helpful. And because my husband was with me, he did pick out some yarn. I love his taste in yarn. For me to knit him a pair of socks. And the owner there said that the magic heel is all the rage now. And I did go to the website for the lady who invented the magic heel, but I guess you have to buy the pattern. I'm not quite sure. So I'll figure that out. But anyway, the other thing is at Rhinebeck, I did buy some really pretty green yarn. You know, I'm on this kick of knitting vests. I love vests. Sorry about this. I don't know how to get this thing in the camera. But this is really beautiful yarn. It is, oh, I have it upside down, Hudson Valley Fibers. And I did speak to the ladies there, and I can get more of this if I need it. Actually, these cameras never do justice. It's really more green than blue, but it's very pretty. So anyway, don't want to waste your time. Let us get started with today's video. Okay, so here are our superstars for today. 3 have finished objects. 1 does fashion trends, which is perfect for this time of the year. And Leslie from A Friend to Knit With. And it's kind of funny because she's not from the Midwest, but in the Midwest, where I was born and raised here, the people make fun of us because we say things like, do you want to come with? And they're kind of waiting for us to finish the sentence, you know, like with me or with us. And so anyway, the name of her podcast is A Friend to Knit With. And then Kristy from Kristy Glass Knits. She is a designer, and so is Leslie. They are both designers, very well established in the knitting community and world. The third one with a finished object is Ruth, and she's relatively new, but very excellent knitter. And then Sarah from Denim and, I have to look, Denim and Rain. It's Denim plus Rain. She's also an excellent knitter, and she is also a designer and all kinds of talent. So anyway, she does the podcast in which we're going to start with, which is fashion trends for 2022. And they'll probably last for 2 or 3 years, because I do know that fashion trends, whether in home stuff or clothing or even hairstyles and stuff, they tend to last for a few years. Not in the business, but I do know that. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so this is Sarah Bronsky, and the name of her podcast on YouTube is Denim and Rain, and she also has a website called Denim and Rain, where she sells, I would just say, artsy type things, like really cutely designed stitch markers, tees, mugs. I'm trying to think what else she has, but cute things. And she's an excellent knitter, and I don't know that she's a knitwear designer. I didn't see that, but she could be. She is on Ravelry and does have a project page on Ravelry. And Sarah started her podcast on YouTube. She was one of the early adapters, probably in 2015. And she has 2 kids. She and her husband live in the Washington State in the USA. Washington State, unlike Washington, D.C., is way up in the Northwest. Beautiful, beautiful state. And she's pretty active on YouTube. And in this video, Sarah features the top fashion trends for 2022. And meaning the trends are more of general categories of trending. And she starts with texture, and you can see the word right over her face there. But and as an example, she had 2 or 3 examples. I'm only picking on one because I want to kind of get through this so you can go look at the podcast yourself. This is the Dustland Sweater by Stephen West, or maybe he calls it a jumper because he lives in Amsterdam. But anyway, the Dustland by Stephen West, and yes, you can see the texture. And of course, any of us who are familiar with Stephen West, we all know that he is not only the king of color, but amazingly talented in stitches, stitch patterns, and obviously in this case, texture. So the second trend that Sarah points out is ruffles. And she did say she's not crazy about this trend. She's not a ruffle girl, evidently. We did feature this sweater in a different episode of Patterns and Podcasts for Knitters. This is the Souffle by Laura Penrose. I have seen this stitched many times, and this photo doesn't show it as well, but it's kind of transparent up here in the yoke. And it's so versatile. You can dress it up at night. You can do long sleeves, obviously. You can crop it and wear it out on top of your jeans. It's very versatile, but obviously it's very trendy now because it does have a ruffle. And the third trend is mohair. Mohair has been around for a long time, but in this case, it's not necessarily held together with a fingering weight yarn, or it's not used just to add a little fluff to a knitwear piece. It is more about the 100% mohair look, the softness of it. It is really pretty with those long slouchy sleeves. But anyway, so mohair continues as a fashion trend, but perhaps in a little bit of a different way. Speaking of mohair, here it is again. This is a beautiful little vest. I absolutely love this. I know that this podcast is about pullovers and jumpers, but this is so pretty. And of course, you could make it a jumper by just putting some sleeves on it. But again, vests really are in, and I do have an episode planned, again, featuring vests. We did one, but I'm going to do another one because there's so many beautiful vest patterns, and I'm a big fan because I think they're really comfortable to wear. This is the Nola Slipover by Svetlana Volkova. Anyway, it's pretty. And then there are collars, and this is another vest that's really cute. And in this episode, Sarah does have 2 or 3 different examples of knitwear with collars. A little more trickier to pull off. I did knit a vest recently that has a collar, not because I planned it, but because I couldn't get the ribbing to stand up, so I laid it down, and it made a collar. So anyway, so collars, and I don't know what this pattern is, but if you go to this episode, you can find out. So once again, this is Sarah from Denim and Rain. This episode was a little different than what she usually does, but I mean, knitting trends are everything, right? I mean, it's kind of nice when you're planning, looking at patterns, trying to decide what to do. Of course, traditional knitwear will always be in style, but it's kind of fun to know what's trending. So the name of this episode, if you want to find it, is Denim plus Rain, Top 5 2022 Knitting Trends. knitting podcasts, knit garment trends, knit sweaters. Any of those words will probably find it. And Sarah has been podcasting since 2018. She has over 72,000 views. She's very easy to find. Instagram, Ravelry, Etsy, and I think in her show notes she usually also promotes her website. So that is Sarah from Denim and Rain. Okay, this is Kristy Glass, and the name of her podcast is Kristy Glass Knits. She has a big following. She is a very good designer. I don't know how many designs she has, but I think her taste is exquisite, just in the things that she makes and the yarns that she chooses. But in this episode, by the way, Kristy comes from the U.S. I don't know what part of the U.S., but she comes from the U.S. I know that much. And in this episode, she is showing off her finished object, which she named this the retro neck. And she designed it using an app that allows you to design your own knitwear, which is kind of cool. And it looked really easy to use, and I will show it to you. It happens that the app that she used is no longer available. This episode is about a year old, and her whole purpose in designing this sweater was to wear it to Rhinebeck, New York, the Wool and Fiber Festival there in 2021. So this episode is a year old because it's October now. So it was about a year ago. So as I was saying, this podcast episode of Kristy's was sponsored by a company called bellish.com. And I went to the website to check out the app, and they're out of business, it looks like. Or they sold their technology to another company called knitanything.com because it looks really similar to what the Bellish one was. I could be wrong, but anyway. So knitanything.com is an app similar to the one that Kristy used to design this striped sweater, which is really, really pretty, I think. It lets you pick out, your sleeves, your body, the length of things, how it's going to fit you. And these apps usually will even show you kind of a little picture of, fill in the color of what your finished object will look like. So I think it'd be really fun to do this. I'm going to actually try it. And it looks like you don't have to join anything. When I didn't actually order, a pattern or the capability to make a pattern, but it looks like they charge about $9 to design your own sweater. So anyway, I think it's kind of cool, but she did a beautiful job with her sweater for sure, and it looks so pretty on her. So just by the way, this Knit Anything does have a Facebook page and a Facebook group, and I couldn't resist. It had this photo on here. It is this lady knitting a fence for her yard, believe it or not. So obviously she can't possibly really be doing that, but I thought it was funny. But seriously, on the Facebook page, there does seem to be pretty good participation from people who are using the app to design. So you might want to go there first to check it out. And some of the designs look pretty sophisticated. I guess because we're not all professional knitwear designers, you're going to see some that probably would not appeal to your taste, or maybe anybody's taste. But then there are others. I think this pink sweater with that little detail on the back is so sweet. And I do like the colors chosen for that other close-up. But anyway, those are just two examples. But if you go to Facebook, Knit Anything group, you could learn more before you take the plunge. So back to the finished object here. Aren't these colors gorgeous? Oh my goodness. And I'm usually one where I like all pastels, but these are so pretty. What are these called? Jewel tones? Beautiful. But Kristy talks about how she went on a trip to Bergen, Norway. And I don't believe she bought all of these yarns in Bergen. Some were from her stash. But they are a mix. They're all wool. but they are a mix of superwash and non-superwash. And she was a little concerned about if they would all block equally. I mean, she did these little tiny stripes, right? And who knows what's going to happen when you block it. But so instead she steam blocked it, which I thought was a good recommendation. It's not going to be as extreme or bloom as, hopefully, bloom as dramatically as when you soak it. But she said she had a really good result. The sweater fit her very well right when she pre-blocking it, and then after she steam blocked it, it just was perfect. She absolutely loves it, and it is so pretty. I love the way she used the yellow around the wrist. She used the yellow just right, because obviously if you look at those colors, it's the one that pops the most. And so that's the one that you want to use carefully, I think, to get a good result, and I think she did. So her goal with this sweater was to get it to fit snug, because she said she wanted this look of a snug fitting sweater and then bib overalls. And as it turns out, she didn't wear the bibs evidently last year, but that's neither here nor there. But she did get the sleeves to match, which is not easy to do with a scrappy, I call this a scrappy sweater. And she did do 4 rows per color consistently, but what she loves about this is the retro turtleneck. I guess because it flares out a little at the top, that's kind of a retro look. I'm not familiar with that, but it does make sense. And she loves the squared off yoke. The fact that it doesn't just go into stripes. You know, a lot of times a striped sweater just goes into this oval shaped striping effect. I think this is adorable too. And I don't know if she made that part of her design or what that is, but I definitely would replicate that for sure. But anyway, so she said if she knitted it again, she'd want to get it a little tighter. But my goodness, she should write this up and sell it. I think it's really cute. Again, it's called, what you call it? The retro neck? I forgot. Retro turtleneck. Retro neck. Okay, so here is how you get to this episode. I think it is so worth watching because Kristy is fun. She doesn't waste your time. She gives you a lot of information. I didn't give you pattern information because, again, this is a custom pattern that she did using an app website, actually. So it's Chris. Oh, by the way, you can print out your pattern. And it looked like it was really well organized. So I just noticed that. So Kristy Glass Knits Rhinebeck Sweater 2021, so this was a year ago, but knitwear is always, I mean, it's timeless. And it's October 16, 2021, that's when she posted this video. Kristy Glass Knits, over 32,000 subscribers, has almost 7 million views. She's really popular. And you can find her on Instagram, Snapchat, Ravelry. No worries, she's very well established and well worth watching. Okay, next up is Leslie Friend. The name of her podcast is A Friend to Knit With. And Leslie is a knitwear designer, a very excellent knitter, a beautiful model, although, I mean, she looks good in everything. And she has been doing her podcasts, I think, almost since YouTube started. And she's very well connected in the knitting community. In this episode, she has fallen in love with this sweater, which I will tell you about in a minute. Sometimes she has her daughter Libby join her. I put a little insert in there so you could see Libby. The podcast before the one that I'm going to feature here, episode 30 of A Friend to Knit With, is when her daughter visited her one of those times, and they are really delightful. And Leslie had knitted matching sweaters for them. I think they were about to leave for Spain or something. She lives with her husband in Pennsylvania. She travels quite a bit, which is kind of fun because you see a lot of travel logs and things like that. She also sometimes participates in CALs, knit-alongs. And she just did, at the time I did this, she had just done the Summer of Stripes knit-along. I don't know if you're aware of that one, but that would have been a good one for Christy Glass to participate in. But it's kind of fun that these very well-connected podcasters, you learn a lot about fun things to do because they kind of get together with other podcasters and sponsor things and give away prizes. And It's fun. Okay, so many of these pics are from the Ravelry site and the Onling Yarn website. Um, the Robinia Sweater is described by the designer, and by the way, the designer is Anne Ventzel, Ventzel. She describes the Robinia sweater as a soft and feminine sweater with an elegant pattern worked in stranded knitting. The sweater is worked from top down. First, the back and front yoke are worked back and forth. Then the two sections are joined for the body, which is worked in the round. And she goes on, how the stitches are picked up and things like that. But isn't that a pretty design? And it looks pretty in the high contrast navy and cream, as well as I would call that sunshine yellow and white. And of course, I think the camel color that Leslie chose is really perfect for this design and looks really good on her. So in this podcast, Leslie explains that she first saw the Robinia sweater pattern in late August, and I'm filming this in the middle of October. And so she picked up the phone, or she sent a message to Katrina. Katrina is her contact at a company called Onling Yarn, and she asked her to put a kit together for her and kind of describe the colors she was interested in, and look at what she came up with. She had to hold 4 together, the 3 shown there under the Onling Yarn logo. And I love the balled yarn at the top with the little specks of blue in there and the variegated golden color. But you see how she got the camel was by holding it with that camel, the brownish color, without getting it too dark and dull looking. So pretty. And of course then she has the pretty fuzzy yarn. I don't know if that's Angora or what that is, but she talks about it. So it was holding together 4 yarns. And as it turns out, Onling Yarn is now offering kits for this sweater. So again, it's a brand new pattern, just out about a month and a half. But if you did want to get the pattern for free and get the kit and all that good stuff, you go to the Onling Yarn website. I'm not a representative for them. I'm not trying to sell anything, just if it's convenient for you. So Leslie said, and I'll use the cliche, that this flew off her needles, except that the pattern called for doing the purl stitches kind of an awkward way through the back loop. That was hard for Leslie. She explains more in the video. I'm just trying to remember what she said. And that was in the pattern. So Leslie varied from that. She did it in a simpler way that was easier for her, especially holding, 4 strands. That could be a little difficult. But as it turns out, she thinks that maybe the neckline was loose because of that. And so she just did the solution we've seen so many times. She went and got some of that really thin elastic yarn from a fabric store. I don't think that yarn stores carry it, and they probably should. But she got the lightweight elastic. She put in 2 strands around the neckline, and it's perfect. She absolutely loves this. If you decide to knit this pattern, and if you want to check out any kind of tricky parts of it, the designer, the Robinia Sweater designer, Anne Ventzel, has a video on YouTube. Easy to find. Just put in the name of the pattern, the name of the designer, it'll come right up. And I did go through it, and I took a few screenshots, and she's really good about taking you right through step by step, row by row, any tricky parts to it. So I would not, if you love the design and have any kind of concerns, I would not hesitate. Okay, so here is the pattern information. It is available on Ravelry. It's published in the Anne Ventzel's Ravelry store. Suggested yarn is there. Again, it's a brand new pattern. It was just published in September of 2022. It does have the big balloon sleeves, but I remember Leslie saying that she was so happy because she wore a coat with it the other day and the coat fit just fine. Sometimes the big bulky sleeves can be problematic. It is available in English, Danish, French, German, Norwegian, and Swedish. So it is an international design. That's kind of cool. Okay, so the episode is A Friend to Knit With, episode 31, the Robinia Sweater and some chit chat, October 21, 2022, A Friend to Knit With, over 10,000 subscribers, almost 500,000 views. And again, Leslie Friend is easily found in all of our favorite places, and she also is a designer. I'm kind of rushing now because I see this is 36 minutes long and I want to wrap it up. So this is Ruth, but I don't want to sell Ruth short. She's adorable and a very good knitter. This is Ruth, and Ruth is the host of the Knitting Hobbit Podcast on YouTube. She is Norwegian. She pronounced her name Ruth, but she's used to using Ruth because she speaks English. She speaks perfect English. She comes to you from the Netherlands. And she worked as a translator in Scotland. I remember her talking about that in one of these episodes, and therefore she is really good at speaking the language. She also makes herself available to translate patterns from English to Danish. So any of you designers out there, or anybody out there who needs a good translator, she's up for it. In this episode, she's very excited because she finished knitting the Billy Pullover by Sari Nordland. It's pretty. It's really pretty in the ivory. It's very pretty in the blue, and the blue is very pretty on Ruth, for sure. So Sari Nordland, the designer, also has a podcast video on YouTube. And this design was published in December of 2021, and she said that she always loved cable pullovers, especially off-white ones, which is probably why she chose this yarn. And she says she loves wearing them, and she really felt that she needed to design one. So this is a raglan cable. Yes, a raglan cable pattern. And I think Ruth did an excellent job on it, but look how elegant it is. It's really, really pretty. It's sophisticated, and even though Ruth is a youngish girl, it looks pretty on her, but it also looks pretty on any of us. I think it's ageless. It's very pretty. So the yarn that Ruth chose to use is Holst Garn. It's a super soft wool, 100% wool. It should be readily available in most places. It comes in 120 colors. So I don't think you'd have any trouble finding a color that you love or that suits you. I have 2 episodes. If you're really interested in seeing the process here, there is a episode where it's a whip, and then of course the finished object episode. And Ruth talks a lot about the details of the knit, things that were a little bit of a problem for her, but not much. So again, it's a good one to watch if you are interested in knitting this pattern in particular, or even just a cable sweater. You'll learn a lot. But for Ruth, she was so thrilled because everything came out perfectly. She got the sleeves exactly how she wanted, the length of it, and of course the color really is pretty. But this is from the Finished Object podcast. So here is the information on the Billy Pullover by Sari Nordland. Again, you'll have no trouble. If you want to knit the Billy Pullover, you can watch this episode of the Knitting Hobbit. But if you just put that in there, this pattern has been out for almost a year. So you'll find a lot of different episodes where you can learn more about it. Broad size selection, and it's about $6.90 euros, which is the same as US now. They're about equal. Here is the episode information. Again, the Knitting Hobbit. Life has been weird, plus so many whips. the Knitting Hobbit Podcast number 24, and then I actually finished projects, Billy Pullover and More, Knitting Hobbit Podcast number 28. So again, she has about 1,500 subscribers, and I don't know that she's been podcasting nonstop since 2013. She probably hasn't, but she's doing great, and you can find her pretty easily on many different sites. So that wraps up this episode. We will take one last look at our podcasters so that you can, jot down their names if you want to visit them, but I will have everything in the show notes as well. So that you can get right to these episodes if you find them helpful. So thank you for watching, and one more thing, let's keep knitting all day, every day. And thank you again for watching Patterns and Podcasts for Knitters. Bye.